Real quick note, because not every gym actually has auto belays, the first 3 drills are on just bouldering walls, and the last 2 will require auto belays. 4x4s are one of the most popular ways to build endurance using just boulders. First, you find 4 problems that are well within your limit. For me, it's V2s, but it can be anything that you'll be able to climb 4 times back to back on each problem. Now, what climbing it actually means may change from person to person, but for me, it's going to go up to the finish, then down to the start, and that counts as 1, essentially staying on the problem as you go up and down. For others, however, it could be where you drop down after each top, maybe you climb an easier problem in between, but the core idea of it is that 4 climbs, 4 times each. Simple as that. And in between these climbs, you'll also just be resting for a set amount of time. I rest for a minute, but again, you can always adjust it to fit your skill level. Now, because endurance is essentially baked into the drill automatically, you're able to focus in on other things that may also be useful for top rope or sport climbing. Say you're a comp climber and you want to practice dynamic moves. Well, you can make each move as dynamic as possible. Maybe you want to do footwork or try to be efficient with your movements. You can do that easily while simultaneously working on endurance, all without a partner. Circuits can take many different forms depending on what wall you actually have. Now, technically, they are done on things like circuit or system boards, and these usually have symmetrical set of holds that are specifically for doing the same movements repeatedly. However, not all gyms are going to actually have them, and there are many that don't even have a spray wall, which can also be a good substitute. So to really quickly touch on them, if you do have one of these types of walls, generally training on endurance can take the form of climbing for a certain length of time, doing specific movements, or a number of holds of your choosing. But if you're like me and you only have bouldering walls, one of the best ways to train endurance is to use bouldering circuits. To put it simply, this is stringing together multiple different boulder problems on the same wall to essentially create a new route. This is especially good for gyms that don't have anything except bouldering. Now, as an example, here the circuit takes the form of 3 different problems. Up the yellow, down the red, traverse 2 blue, up the blue to finish. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Keep in mind that you can still absolutely do normal circuit or system board training on bouldering walls, but you may have to modify it slightly to fit the wall you're actually climbing. If you do like the bouldering circuits that I presented, just remember that you're in full control of what the route will look like. If you want a cruxy route, maybe squeeze a V6 between a bunch of V2s. If you want to mimic a certain grade, try and find a good mix of problems to connect. And lastly, if you are at the level where the routes in your gym are maybe too easy for you, you can easily make some of the hardest routes using just the boulders. So while the last 2 drills have loads of science and are used by pros as well as amateurs alike, this one admittedly is one of my own creation, although probably somewhere out there others have done it as well. Now, I'm sure everyone knows just general traversing, which is absolutely good for endurance training, but my drill modifies it slightly. It's called a start hold traverse, and as the name suggests, it's traversing the bouldering area with 2 rules. Your hands can only use the start holds, and your feet must be on the color of the handholds you're using. Here, for example, you can see me trying to only use the holds with the small start plaques, and of course, only using the footholds that correspond to that color. Of the bouldering drills in this video, this one is definitely my favorite because it gets as close as you can to an actual route, particularly in the mentality of it. As you traverse along, you actually have to do things like be creative with beta, find rest spots, move quickly through the crux, etc. To me, start hold traverse is the closest I felt to being on a route without actually being on a route. Now sadly, the big downside is of course you do need a rather large area with few climbers to actually do the full traverse, or even in some cases just a part of it. But if you do get a chance to do this drill, I think you'll definitely find it both fun and definitely challenging for endurance. Arc training is one of the most scientifically backed drills for endurance training. It stands for aerobic restoration and capillary training, and it's meant to improve your ability at climbing without getting pumped. While the science talks about very specific things within our biology, which, if you are interested, I've linked an article in the description, the actual drill is very simple. First, you pick how long you're going to be on the wall itself. If you're starting out, it can be 15-20 minutes. If you have a lot of endurance already, it could be maybe 30 minutes. But within this, you're going to have to pick a difficulty that you can maintain a stable minimal pump throughout the duration of the drill. Now what this means is it can get a bit muddy, because it's difficult to actually describe how pumped you feel, but for me, I try to maintain the level where you're just starting to get pumped, and don't really go beyond that. So what that means is resting on the climb, choosing a lower difficulty if you have to, just focusing on maintaining a pump for a certain amount of time. Lastly, and the only drill really meant to be done for sport climbing, is yo-yoing. Yo-yos are simply going up to the first clip, clipping in, going back down to the start, climbing up to the second clip again, clipping in, down climbing again, and so on and so forth. And that's pretty much it. It's really simple, and it can be done as maybe an extension on grades close to your project, maybe as something in between just for pure endurance, or as an easy cool down at the end of your session. This is actually very common among early sport climbers such as team kids, or among those getting their lead certifications, as it teaches you efficiently how to clip in as you go along. Also, if you are just a top roper, it may be even beneficial to do this drill because of the added step of clipping. So if you were to come back to top roping, thus removing that element, you'll definitely see an improvement in your endurance. But that's it. Thank you everyone so much for watching, especially everyone who actually watched my last video. I think we're at like 4.5k views. That really means a lot to me, and hopefully I can continue this channel for a long time to come. Thank you guys.